Hi, we're going to talk about gender and how you learn gender roles. Um, this is an interesting topic to me because gender roles have changed so dramatically since I first started teaching this course. And if you look at just in the last few weeks, some of the things that have occurred, it shows you some of the changes that are going on with related to gender. A couple of weeks ago, for the first time, a woman was appointed to be a CEO of a major bank in this country. And of course, we know just a couple of days ago, Judge Ginsburg died. And you may or might not know much about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but as a young attorney, she had to fight against all types of gender discrimination. It was not expected that women could be lawyers, that they couldn't compete with men in the legal arena. And even when she really had made it as a lawyer and argued a case dramatically expanding and addressing issues related to gender discrimination and gender limitations. She was told again and again that she should not be the one arguing the case, even though she was the one behind the case. She was the one who really had done all the research on the case. She's the one who knew the case and was passionate about the case. They still told her that to go to the Supreme Court as a woman and argue the case would not be as effective as if a man went. And she just died, as I said, a few days ago, and she was only the second woman to be appointed to the Supreme Court. Okay, so that's a long history of more than a couple of hundred years of this country, and only twice has a woman been on the court until that point. Now we have two other women who are on the court now. So you can see how these issues are starting to change and evolve over time. Um, One of the other interesting things is that she's going to have the honor of having her body lie in state at the Capitol Rotunda. It will be the first time that a woman has ever been so honored in our country. So when you think about gender, and feminists will talk about the fact that simply being born a man or a woman, a boy or a girl, is going to have a dramatic impact on every aspect of your life, the roles that you play, how you feel about things, what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do, what the expectations are for you, and so forth. And that is something that feminists have tried to address and change. And it is changing, but it's changing much slower than people realize. And so, for many of you who are young and have grown up with a lot of advantages as women that women didn't enjoy not that long ago, we remember back in colonial days, women could not own money or property. They didn't have the right to vote. But it was not until 1920 that women got the right to vote. It was not till the 1960s that women got the right to have their own bank account separate from their husband. So, we're not talking about a very, very long history in this country of women having anything close to equal rights. And of course, we still know today that women are not paid the same for the same job. Even in the field of medicine, where women have dramatically made inroads, typical woman makes approximately $25,000 less doing the same exact job that a male doctor does. And when you look at the parts of medicine where it's most lucrative, you'll find it's almost exclusively male. When we talk about orthopedics, cardiology, GI, neurology, it's almost still 100% male. The kinds of positions in medicine that women get are much more likely to be pediatricians, endocrinologists, allergists, and so forth. So gender discrimination continues, and we're going to talk a little bit about how we learn gender roles and what they mean. We also see today, again, very dramatically within the last few years, the idea of identifying yourself as being male or female. And what does that mean? And how fluid is that today compared to in the past? Um, Many people today of a younger generation do not want to be addressed as he or she. They don't want to be identified as being male or female. So there are other options today. It's relatively new, it's very new. Even at Queens College, the bathrooms will have labels on it saying that you can go into this bathroom depending upon how you identify yourself, not about whether you're biologically male or female. So this is a big deal. When women are pregnant, what's the first thing they say to you? Do you know if you're having a boy or a girl? Why? Why does it matter? It does matter to the parents often, as well as to the other people around them. When you know it's a boy or you know it's a girl, you start to think about things gender specific. You start to think about decorating their room for a boy or a girl. So these are all things that you grow up with. And what I want you to think about as you read through the slides on this, and I'm going to go through some of it now, but what I want you to think about when you read over the slides and think about this, because it's going to be part of the assignment that I'm going to post soon in the next couple of days. How did it affect you growing up, male or female? How did that define who you are or who you were? How have you transcended that if you've changed your attitude about that? What roles did you play in that family based on simply being male or female? How has it affected your life? How does it continue to affect your life? Would you want to change it? Think about that. Think about how you learn this stuff as we go through this. So when we talk about gender, we often get into the nature nurture issue and behavior. Nature assuming that because you were born either male or female, that's what sex you are. It's not necessarily about how you define yourself in terms of gender, right? But simply by being born male or female, you're going to have different physiological processes. You're going to, physically be able to do things like a woman can get pregnant and breastfeed, a man can't. So, how does that set you up then, if you want to be a parent, to play very specific roles based on being male or female? And how does that impact your family going forward as you create a family together? So the roles that you play, how work is influenced by the fact that you're a woman who's staying home breastfeeding a newborn baby as opposed to a father. These are going to have big impacts on people. So again, think about this stuff as relates to you going forward in this chapter. So nature is related to all the hormonal changes, the hormonal differences between men and women, and how that may impact behavior, how it may impact physiological functioning. In addition to that, we have nurture, the environment that you grow up in, and what that does. So there's a couple of three basic theories that they talk about here. Sociobiology, which really focuses on the biology of things. The fact that being born male or female is going to have an impact on your behavior and how you feel and how you are in the world. In its extreme, we've heard people be discriminated against, for example, women, because the assumption is that their brains don't function in the same way with regard to science and math. And that's led to major discriminations in all kinds of professions. When we talk about a social learning theory, we're talking about how your behavior is influenced from the youngest age, where you are talked to in a certain way because you're a boy or a girl, where toys are given to you based on being a boy or a girl, activities that you're taken to are based on whether you're a boy or a girl. So when you think about the environment you grew up in, and how you were treated. Were you told, don't do that because you're a girl? Girls don't do that. If you're a boy, were you told, don't cry, you got to be tough, stuff like that? The kinds of games that you played, the kinds of toys that you were given. How did all of that shape who you are as male or female and how you identify yourself? And how did your parents play a role in that? What kinds of roles did they play in the home in terms of male and female behavior? Were things clearly defined as this is something that women do as opposed to something men do? Or were things shared? In Ginsburg's case, she had a husband who was a very successful lawyer, but who supported her as being an equal partner, somebody who had the right to also develop her own career as much as he had to develop his career. And he took over many of the household responsibilities, and dealing with the children and doing cooking and being very involved to allow her to have the time that she needed to fully develop her career. So sociobiology is the first one. Social learning theory is the second one. People learn through reinforcement and imitation and modeling. They imitate their parent, often of the same sex, and you will see them dressing up like that parent, and mirroring behaviors of that parent. And as parents pay attention to the kid and reinforce this by being happy that they're behaving this way and so forth, it reinforces those kinds of gender based behaviors. Um, Nature nurture also figures into the cognitive development theory, one of the other major theories here, that we learn through thinking about gender. When you're a child, baby, an infant, 1 years old, 2 years old, you literally do not have the cognitive ability to think about what you're doing. So you can't think about gender. You can't think I'm a boy, I'm a girl, and what that means. What you do is you see certain aspects of behavior, the way that people are dressed as being a boy or girl, the toys they play with, the length of their hair. And so gender is a superficial thing that could be changed. You could grow your hair long, wear a dress, and play with girls' toys. And if you're a boy, then you become a girl, and vice versa. As kids get older and find out that, in fact, this is biologically based, that there's a difference between boys and girls biologically, then we see them start to separate and identify with their same group, their same sex group, and engage in activities that are more stereotypical of that group. And the feminists, of course, have a very different perspective on this. The feminists believe that gendered behavior is learned. It's part of a social system that creates gender scripts of how you're supposed to behave as male or female. So, we have that perspective from the feminist point of view that this is not something that's biological at all, but rather something that society imposes, and that it's based on how parents talk to you, what's reflected in our society, the fact that throughout history there have been many, many women who've been very strong, powerful leaders of countries like in England and in India and in Israel and in Germany and going all the way back to Cleopatra, but not here, not in the United States of America. So when we talk about this stuff, I want you to, as you read over all of these descriptions of the ways that we think about gender and how we find ourselves and our own gender identity, how does that reflect what you saw growing up in your own home, what you saw on TV, what you saw on children's shows that's typically are very stereotypical in terms of how they portray male characters versus female characters. Mulan is like considered one of the great steps forward because we have a female warrior. It was always men who were in that role. Men saving women, saving the damsel in distress. Even the Ninja Turtles, they were saving a damsel in distress in every episode. Superman was always saving Lois Lane. So we have the Lois Lanes and the Aprils of the world. And then the Power Rangers finally had a Power Ranger who was the equal of the guys. Kim could be one of the guys, although she did wear pink. So think about all this stuff as you read through this and as you look at what the book describes and what the slides describe in terms of gender and gender behavior and gender ideology. Think about your behavior and how you define yourself in these terms. And where did it come from? It's not just something you chose when you were a kid, it's something you learned when you were a kid. It was reflected by the world around you that you grew up in. And that at some point in your life, you have the opportunity to make a decision to transcend that and be different if you want to.